My name is Jason, and this is Just Watches. Alright, about a year and a half ago I saw this watch was available for sale and I made a video about it. It looks somewhat similar to the Sarb, and with the Sarb being discontinued at that time, I was curious if this was possibly a replacement. Well, I finally got my hands on one to review, so we will be reviewing this watch this week and then comparing it head to head with the SZSB013 next week. However, before we begin, if you're enjoying the content of this channel, I invite you to subscribe, and if you like the contents of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. Thank you so much. So price and availability. Well, the MSRP on this watch is $550. However, at the time of this recording, this watch is available from a number of third-party vendors for between $300 and $350. So starting with the case, it is 40 millimeters in diameter, it's 48 millimeters lug to lug, it's 13 millimeters thick, and then the lug width opening is 20 millimeters. So the case is brushed along the top with high polished sides. The lugs on this watch are very long and curve down substantially. The lugs are also pierced for easy strap changes. The case also has very subtle crown guards, and then the bezel is high polish. Despite being 13 millimeters thick, the mid-case is thin, and due to the curvature of the lugs, the watch wears thinner than the specifications might suggest. The stock bracelet starts at 20 millimeters and then tapers all the way down to 16 millimeters. The end links are hollow and are about 2 millimeters shorter than the lugs, which is a bit strange and makes the bracelet not seem very cohesive with the head of the watch. Also, the circular brushing of the lugs doesn't really match the brushing on the end links. However, the articulation across the back of the watch is excellent, as is the articulation between the links. This all helps with the comfort of the bracelet. The sides of the links are high polished. The clasp is a double push-to-point style, signed with Seiko, and features a fully milled scissor. There are no micro positions, which helps keep the clasp small, but there are half links for sizing. Getting the perfect size might be a bit tricky, but I think this watch actually looks much better on a strap than the stock bracelet. Sizing the bracelet is accomplished with a pin and collar system, but the collars on this watch are the larger spring style, which is less tricky to size than the Seiko bracelet that use very tiny collars. I'm glad you get a bracelet at this price point, but as is usually the case for Seiko, it's not the strong point of the watch overall. The exhibition screw-in caseback helps provide 100 meters of water resistance and provides a view of the 4R35 that powers this watch. This is a hacking, hand-winding, 21,600 vibration per hour movement with a 42-hour power reserve and a stated accuracy of -20 to +40 seconds per day, but I usually find they run closer to ±10 seconds a day. It also features a quick set date. The 6mm push-pull crown is unsigned but nicely knurled. While it is easy to operate the watch via this crown, I feel like it sticks out of the side of the watch pretty far. I would prefer if the crown guards were absent and the crown was a bit thinner, but this is a minor nitpick. The domed hard-luxe crystal is flush to the bezel at the edge, but the dome does rise about 1 millimeter from the bezel in the center. There is a cool distortion effect when viewing the watch from an angle. However, I'm not a huge fan of the domed crystal on this watch. Without any AR coating, it catches a lot of light and sometimes makes the dial difficult to read. I would have preferred a flat crystal, and of course, I always prefer a sapphire crystal if I can get it. The dial is a beautiful sunburst blue. It's very dark, almost black in low lighting, but with any bright or direct light, a vivid blue sunburst springs to life. There are dashes for each of the minutes around the edge of the dial. The indices are also really nice at this price point. They are applied, multifaceted, and use multiple finishes. The edges are high polish, while the tops have very small parallel lines carved into them. They catch light very well and in different ways due to the different finishes. The 12, 3, 6, and 9 indices are doubled, which helps with orientation. The date window is also nicely framed. Seiko is applied 12, and then automatic 23 joules and 10 bar are written at 6. Finally, made in Japan, and the movement information is very small below the 6 o'clock index, making up the rest of the text on this dial. I would prefer less text at the 6 o'clock position, but this is another small nitpick. The handset is a very handsome set of dolphin hands that are both faceted and half high polish and half brushed. This combination of finishes makes the hands very legible and very visually interesting, as the light will play off them in a variety of ways due to the different finishes. The minute hand is also plenty long and terminates all the way at the edge of the dashes and indices at the edge of the dial. The second hand is also very long and all high polish with a very long counterbalance. The hands, dial, and indices are definitely the best part of this watch and overall really well executed. Popping it on the Timegrapher in the dial up position, we are getting +8 seconds a day with good amplitude and 0 beat error. And then with the crown up, we're getting about -4 seconds a day with slightly lower amplitude as the balance wheel fights gravity and minimal beat error. And here's the watch on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. You can see the lugs stick out a bit from the bracelet, which is a bit odd, but the watch wears thinner than its 13mm would suggest. I would prefer this watch at 38mm, but that's just my preference. So pros and cons, starting with the pros. Well, as I said before, the dial hands and indices on this watch are very well finished, especially at this price point, and I think are the best part of the watch. I'll also give Seiko credit here for including a bracelet at this price point. While it's not great, it isn't terrible either, and I always like the option of having a stock bracelet when I get a watch. As for cons, I'm not a fan of the crown, which sticks out a bit far for my liking. I'm also not a fan of the crystal, which catches a lot of light and obscures the dial. I would also like to see a sapphire crystal. And then finally, I know Seiko loves making these sporty dress pieces 40mm, but I would much prefer this watch at 38mm. So is this watch worth the money? Well, at full MSRP, no, I don't think so. If you are lucky, you can still find a lightly used Sarb 033 at that price, and the Sarb is just a superior watch. That being said, with the Sarb 033 and 035 getting harder to find, if you can get this one on sale, and I got this one for less than half of the MSRP, you aren't getting a bad watch at that price. While it lacks the slightly better 6R movement and sapphire glass of the Sarb, I was prepared to really dislike this watch, but found myself really enjoying my time with it, especially on a leather strap. So if you can find this watch for less than $250, I actually recommend it. So there you have it, the Seiko SZSB013. Now this watch also comes in a number of other colorways, and while I don't think it is a replacement for the Sarb, it wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. So what do you guys think about this watch? Let me know in the comments below. As always, if you're enjoying the content of this channel, I invite you to subscribe, and if you like the contents of this individual video, please give it a thumbs up. That's all for this time. My name is Jason, and you have been watching Just Watches.